John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on August the 9th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got a lot of great information for you, so let's go ahead and click over here to Murtech on Rumble. And yes, this is my Rumble channel, daily news update. Okay, this is the video we're going over tonight, episode 2004. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it, so there we have it. Looks like Glow and Susie Pohl and Debbie BS has joined us tonight, so let me get back with you here in a moment, ladies. But first, let me click the Show More button and expand out the description box. We have information from Andrew Klavan, USA Watchdog, Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 report. Okay, so let's get some shout outs done here. TTTUS just started following my channel. 02292020, that would be 2029-2020 or 229-2020, just started following my channel. DM Seeley just started following my channel. Smoke and Fire TV, Smoke Fire TV just started following me. Barry Man 59 just started following my channel. Home on the Range 2021 just started following my channel. And 2025 MLK just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following me. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, let's slide down here. Debbie BS reposted my episode 2003. Kim Vanoy reposted my extra 726A. Looks like I Bridges and San Francisco KYD reposted my extra 786C. And Steph Feng 101, Arky 72, Stormy Night, and Dookie Ball 1776 commented on my daily news wrap-up. Viper Senior, Susan 080 commented on my episode 2003. Kim Vanoy, Debbie BS, and Glow commented on my extra 786A. Bassman Dude and Debbie BS commented on my extra 786B. San Francisco KYD and Debbie BS and Glow commented on my extra 786C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my videos and your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. There we go. Okay, well, let's get into this. Andrew Klavan, he's going to give his monologue, and then we're going to move it up here to about the 7-minute and 52-second mark. The War on Christ, episode 1290. All right, let's see what he has to say.
Many people have begun to worry about the state of American politics. They feel President Trump's approval ratings have dropped to 37% of the number of people in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, while the Democrat Party is being taken over by communists, so that the country is careening helplessly into a fatal catastrophe that will leave us eating our pets for breakfast before we wage a civil war that reduces the continent to a pool of blood and ashes. Of course, all that's true, but it's no reason to panic. It's kind of a reason to panic. But if you just take a breath and then zoom in for a really close look at the situation, I think you'll see a reason to panic really close, which hopefully will make it look like something else. On the Republican side, the problem is the unpopular war in Iran. President Trump says he is holding off on hurling deadly missiles at Iran because he has managed to negotiate a peace deal with Iran's supreme leader, even though the leader is a Jew-hating Islamist whose slogan is death to America. Iran's supreme leader, however, says he hasn't been negotiating with anyone, and the confused Trump is actually negotiating with a Democrat candidate for Congress, who's also a Jew-hating Islamist whose slogan is death to America, so the mistake is understandable. Overall, the Iranians have sworn to continue to resist Trump's attacks until the arrival of the apocalyptic 12th Imam, who is also a Democrat candidate for Congress. This means that Trump will have to continue hurling deadly missiles, except that we're running out of deadly missiles, so he may have to hurl something else deadly, like Kamala Harris's memoir or lettuce. But while our munitions are running low, our military is trying to reform. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says was administering testosterone tests to the warriors until one of them lost his temper, beat the tester senseless, opened fire on his fellow soldiers with a machine gun, then sexually assaulted a female lieutenant while singing God Bless the USA at the top of his lungs, which fortunately turned out to be the correct answer on the testosterone test. With Trump distracted by the war, he hasn't had a lot of free time in which to pressure Senate leader John Thune to, like, make a law or something. So Thune has been forced to find other ways to pass the time. To entertain himself, Thune has invented a new version of charades in which the answer is always a potted plant. The way the game is played, Senate leader John Thune just stands there like a potted plant, and the other senators keep guessing that he's Senate leader John Thune until Thune reveals that no, he's actually a potted plant, whereupon everyone has a good laugh and goes on summer break. With the Republicans in disarray, the Democrats have felt free to nominate congressional candidates who believe in socialism. The candidates are careful to explain that socialism is not the same as communism, because in communism, millions of people starve to death while a leader with a bushy mustache shoots all his colleagues in the back of the head, whereas in socialism, there's generally no bushy mustache. The new Democrat candidates say their real platform is economic equality and hating Jews, and they're all out of economic equality. The New Democrats have found some common cause with former right-wing figures like Tucker Carlson. Carlson has been subtly supporting the communists by interviewing such popular pro-communist celebrities as Satan. Tucker says that many Americans don't realize that Satan actually loves Christians, especially with a little mustard and a smattering of relish. And he says Satan should not be silenced just because Zionist influencers are calling him Prince of Darkness or because Prince of Darkness happens to be his official title. Tucker then let out that creepy, high-pitched laugh of his, burst into flames, and fell through the floor in a cloud of sulfurous smoke, increasing his audience by several million. So, I think it's clear we can all avoid panicking about the state of American politics if we just zoom in too close to see it properly and then take heroin. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
All right. Well, once again, he's cleared things up for me. I was a little confused on, the war and all that, but now we're in good
do
shape.
it today. Chapter 1, the revival is now. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been talking about something that I think is the story of our moment. I think it's what's going on. I'm not hearing a lot of other people talk about it, at least not the way that I'm talking about it, which is rediscovering the role of God in our political and cultural lives after centuries in which he's been slowly fading away as an effective presence. And for the last half a century, we've essentially been barred from the conversation. When I first started at the Daily Wire, we would have conversations where people would say, we can't make biblical arguments because people don't believe in the Bible anymore. And I always thought, well, the problem with that is there's no other way. That it doesn't have to be a biblical argument, but there's certain arguments you cannot make without God. And I've been trying to talk about this, and I've noticed that what I've been saying and what people have been hearing have been two different things. Not everybody, but certain people are hearing me say something entirely different than what I'm saying. And that's on me. I'm the person I'm supposed to be able to communicate. And it is true, especially on religious topics, but it's actually generally true that a lot of people have just two slots in their head, yes and no. And if you don't say exactly what they think, or it's a little different angle on what they think, or maybe it's a correction to what they think, they just hear no. They just hear you're against it. So for instance, this week, somebody said, that I'm sanctioning sin, which by the way, I hate to break this to you, but I don't have the power to do that. I don't even have the pretend, badge where I can sanction sin. I have no power to do that. But what I'm trying to do is give a realistic portrayal of what it means to believe in God in a society where people are free not to believe in God. That's a very, interesting place to be. And it's not every society, it's this society. And I think that it requires a lot of thought. So, people will say, well, you can't sanction, you can't accommodates sin, but that's ridiculous. I mean, the crucifixion accommodates sin. We're supposed to die for our sins, and instead Jesus dies for us. That's an accommodation of sin, is accepting that this is who we are and forgiving us. And Jesus, of course, dined with sinners and was attacked for it all the time. But that is not what I'm doing. I'm talking about real life, what it is like in real life to bring God to life in the presence of people who may be doing things that they know they shouldn't be doing and that you probably don't have a right to legislate. So why does this matter? Okay, this is what I'm going to tell you. And this is the part that I'm pretty sure no one else is saying right this minute. God is coming back into our world. Now, obviously, he never left. And I'm not talking about the second coming. I'm talking about the fact that God has been exiled from our conversations as thinking, intellectual human beings. I mean, there are all kind of people who talk openly about God, but when you talk, I mean, I'm thinking about guys who I love. I mean, I love Jordan Peterson, but he can only talk about God as a Jungian myth. I mean, he's kind of in a Jungian cul-de-sac, and this is because of what's called the social imaginary, because we have learned, and it's become part of our sense of things, that to talk about God is untoward, it's unintellectual, it's only what low people do, it's what stupid people do. It's not what a smart person does, and it's not what certainly an intellectual does. One of the smartest people on earth, I think, is Ian McGilchrist. I read one of his magnum opus. I read one of his books. It was over 1,000 pages long. I loved every page of it. I interviewed him. Nobody admires Ian McGilchrist more than I do. I just think he's an amazing, amazing mind, an amazing thinker, an amazing writer. But I didn't know until he came on. He says good things about Christianity, but I didn't know until he came on that he considered himself a Christian. He was openly a Christian. So I teased him a little bit about it. I said, well, why can't you just come out and say that? And I said, even in your book, I'm reading for 800 pages before you even start to introduce the idea that, once you start to really think about it, there probably is a God. And he said, totally honestly, he said, I have to meet people where they are. They'll stop listening. I have to meet, and he's talking about intellectual people because he's writing very, very intellectual books. He said, I have to meet people where they are. That way I can make my argument. Now, that is a good thing. That is a good thing. But I can't do that because I'm on a mission from God. So I'm not allowed to not say what I think. And I have been predicting for longer than this podcast has been on the air. I've been predicting that there was going to be a revival in faith, but it was not going to look like other revivals. Most revivals take place on the street. People are pitching tents and preaching. Television shows come on, and that people are swept up in this movement. The Jesus movement. People are getting baptized in droves and all this stuff. But the revival that I've been predicting has been a revival among the smartest people in the country. It's been going to be a revival among the people who are not allowed to believe. The academics, the writers, the artists, the people who are supposed to be too good for God, and people like McGilchrist, and also like the people at Stephen Meyer's Discovery Center, who are scientists, who are starting to realize that science works great when you do it right, but scientism, the idea that all things are material and are accessible through science, doesn't make sense, and Christianity does. Okay, and that is something you're not going to be able to measure in terms of how many people are in church, in terms of what young people are saying. These are the polls they take. Well, young people no longer believe in God and all this stuff, and that is not the way this gets measured, because it's going to take years for those ideas to trickle down. But once you have people of high intelligence and high cultural validity, stop with the cheap, atheism of guys like Bill Maher. And listen, I respect Bill Maher, and I like what he does, but his atheism is just not thought out. It's really dopey. And the ideas of the so-called four horsemen of the apocalypse, the atheists, the new atheists, are from people who've never read any Thomas Aquinas or any theology at all. They're just kind of throwing out these ideas of things that are their personal beliefs that they've inherited because they're part of the social imaginary. This revival that I have predicted is happening now as I speak. I mean, McGilchrist, I think, is a good example. Stephen Meyer Center is a good example, but I'm hearing it from a lot of people who before wouldn't have said, even entertained the idea. And it's still dangerous for them to say it. It still means that, well, can I make this argument? Do I have to be like Ian McGilchrist and put it in, terms that my intellectual friends will understand? Do I have to be like Jordan and make it mythological instead of saying, no, this is actually something, that really has happened? And I'm not talking about what I'm not talking about is your particular religion. Now, I am talking about Jesus Christ because I believe he's the Son of God. And even if I'm wrong, which I'm not, but even if I were wrong, he'd still be the God who shaped Western civilization. So I am talking about Jesus Christ. But I'm talking about him as a relationship between individuals and between intellects, and the kind of thing that you can say, well, we can't do that because that's not what God wants us to do. And here's why I think that, which is something that really we have not been able to talk about except in the most judgmental terms. So I have to talk about it. I can't talk about it in mythological terms because I don't believe that's the way that it's relevant. I believe it's relevant as a reality. I believe God's presence is relevant as a reality. I believe he's really there. I believe to not see him is an act of madness. I believe we have descended into a kind of madness because we're not seeing the essential nature of reality. I mean, it's like not believing in gravity. Eventually you're going to walk off a building and get flattened. I think it's crazy and I think the things we talk about are crazy. And I think the only cure for that craziness is to see reality as it is, which means to see it as God. So, because I think this is happening now, and listen, I my doom, because I have to say these things, my doom is to say them 5 years before people catch on. And so you write to me and tell me, well, I disagree with you, but I kind of like you. Uh, and then 5 years later, when the things that I tell you are going to happen, I'm talking about something from the next 5 years, and you're thinking, well, I disagree with you now, but whoever said that back then might have been right. So I'm going to try and be clearer about what I'm talking about, and as we take a look at the politics of this very dramatic time. I've always thought there ought to be one place.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here and move on to the next video. But, this is good stuff, and I have included that in my daily news wrap up. So let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Andrew Klavan. This is the video I shared with you, The War on Christ. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here, and look like Shibi63 has joined us in the poll along with Susie Poll 2016 and Debbie BS and Glow GP Wilco 01. So anybody else want to jump in here? Definitely feel free to do so. Okay, let me open the description box again. USA Watchdog. Yen carry trade blow up financial equivalent of all out nuclear war with Jim Rickards. Okay, now I did this because there was some information that came out about gold, excuse me, about gold, how it was going to take off in August, and it definitely has. Now, you know, I own a little bit of gold. I normally do investments with a mutual fund company that I buy mutual funds on gold. Now, what the mutual fund is in gold is it's investing in mining companies. Okay, so generally, when gold goes up, the stock for these mining companies go up as well, and the mutual fund then goes up. So this year, uh, I don't buy it and keep it. I buy it till it goes up a bit because it's volatile. Okay, and when it goes down, I buy it, and then when it goes up, 10% or whatever, I sell it. That's what I do, and I've realized a 40% gain this year. Okay, so that's not bad. the 40% return on my investments. But let's see what Jim Rickards with Greg Hunter on U.S. Watchdog has to say.
I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Coming up, a book author I haven't had on for a while. He is a 8-time best-selling author. I can't hold them up one by one, but here are his books sold out: Money GPT, Road to Ruin, Aftermath, Death of Money, The New Great Depression. Oh, and The New Case for Gold. I just like that because, gold had a big day on Friday. And back in 2016, James Rickards said, you should be buying gold. Probably a pretty good call, wouldn't you think? At gold at $4,300 an ounce and probably going higher, and all the central banks buying it. This was before the central banks were buying it way ahead of the curve, Jim Rickards. So I have him. He also said this about AI back in about November of 24, right here on USA Watchdog, back before AI. What AI is what? Artificial intelligence. And what did he say? He was dogging it, right? Oh, AI and the kill chain will end up getting you killed. He one of the first people to come out and say, this is bad juju, folks. And what is it? Bad juju. It's bad. It's no good. It's awful. So without further ado, I wanted to come on with Jim Rickards. Jim Rickards, thanks for joining us today on USA Watchdog. You have a storied career. You have a much bigger resume than I talked about with your 8 best-selling books. But I do want to start with this right here, the new case for gold. 2016, you should be buying gold.
Thanks, Greg. The title, The New Case for Gold, actually picks up on something that Paul wrote in 1982. So 1980 becomes two. But Rand Paul and minority interesting to do it, but there was this minority report called The Case for Gold. Now that was 46 years ago, and when I wrote my book about 10 years ago at this point, I said, okay, I'm going to pick up where Dr. Paul left off, and I'm going to call it The New Case for Gold, because it's really the same case, which is it preserves wealth. It'll get you through inflation, deflation, you name your calamity, having allocation of gold will serve you very well. But it was also an interesting time in the sense that gold, if you go back to 1971, gold was $35 an ounce, fixed price, Bretton Woods. Nixon broke the link. Between 1971 and 1980, gold went up 2,700%. Sorry, it was a little bit 2,300%. Sorry, it went from $35 to $800. That was a 2,300% gain. Then it went in. Then it went down. It was sideways for a long time throughout the 80s. It was a long, slow bear market. It bottomed in 1999 at $250 an ounce. Now, bear in mind, you're still almost 10 times the $35. So it's not like you lost money if you ran at the old $35, but it was down from the 800, which is a little bit of a spike at the time. In 1999, at $250 an ounce, that's when Gordon Brown sold most of the UK's gold, about half of it. They got Brown because he picked the bottom of the market, like $250 an ounce is like giving it away. So he did that. Then it took off, and we had another major bull market from 1999 to 2011. Gold went from $250 an ounce to $1,900 an ounce. Again, up by a factor of 8, so a little over 700% gain in that stretch. The peak was August 2011, but then it entered a second bear market. And the thing to understand, Greg, is that prior to 1971, you didn't have bull markets or bear markets. Gold was fixed. The dollar price of gold was fixed by governments. So there were no bull or bear markets. It was a link. It was a fixed exchange rate, in other words. Okay, so bull market in the 1970s, bear market in the 80s and 90s, a second major bull market in the 2000s and the early 2010s. But then came the second bear market. And where did it bottom? It bottomed in December 2015, So between August 2011 and December 2015, gold dropped from $1,900 an ounce to $1,050 an ounce. Now, let me tell you a little quick story about that drop. In the middle of it, right around the time, in fact, the reason we met is I met with Jim Rogers. And Jim, I'm sure you know, is one of the greatest commodity traders of all time.
Yes.
Original partner of George Soros. Nobody knows more about commodities than Jim Rogers. And so I said, Jim, what do you think? And he said, well, two things. He said, I'm holding on to my gold. He said, I'm not necessarily buying more at the moment, although he has since then. But he said, I'm holding on to my gold. But here's the thing. He said, no commodity goes to the moon without a 50% drop along the way. And if you don't understand that and you're not prepared for that, you're in the wrong business. So
Wow.
I took that to heart. I said, okay, Jim, I hear you. I'm going to watch that. So what happened? Gold went from $1,900 an ounce, $1,000 an ounce in the 4 years between 2011 and 2015. But here's the thing: when you do this kind of metrics, you have to pick a base. It's like, okay, what's my base for calculating this? So I took the 1999 base, $250 an ounce, up to $1,900 an ounce, which was August 2011. Okay, take that gain, 250 to 1,900, divided by 2, subtract it from 1,900. What do you get? 1075. In other words, it's right next to 1050. Jim Rogers called it almost to the penny. What happened was exactly what he told was going to happen, which is that gold would draw down 50%, in this case, from the 1900 to 1050. He said, but then, as he said, it goes to the moon. And it did. It got to recently, last January, $5,400 an ounce. Now, what's happened since then? It's down since then, down about 20%. Exactly, it's about 4,400 an ounce as we speak. A couple of things that a lot of people are discouraged, like, oh, it's going down again. Gold peaked. Is it on the way down? Should I get out? So the answer is no. It hasn't. There was an interim peak, but nowhere near an all-time peak, number one. Number two, you should not get out of it. This is a great buying opportunity. But what it was a replication of the formula that Jim Rogers told me 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago, which is that it draws down 50% along the way, much higher. So what's the math this time? So again, pick a base. I picked $1,800 an ounce. It wasn't that long ago, Greg. It was about 3 years. 3 years ago, it was about $1,800 an ounce. So you go from 1,800 to 5,400, which was the peak, divide by 2, subtract from 5,400. That puts you around $3,800, give or take, right in there. Well, gold about a month ago was down to 4,000. Actually, it ticked like 3,900. So again, really close to that 3,800 mark I mentioned. When I saw that, I said, okay, this is what mathematicians call scale invariance. What that means is that if I gave you a 10-year stock market chart and a 2-day stock market chart, but I took away the dates and the index, they look the same. It's the same, up, down, gradually up, occasional crash. They look the same. In other words, these patterns are different. So what's just happened when gold went from 5,400 to about 3,900? It's up since then, to be clear. From 5,400 to 3,900, that was another 50% drawdown, exactly as Jim Rogers predicted. So what does that tell? What does that tell me? It tells me now it's going to the moon. When I say the moon, I mean $10,000 an ounce. We've had our correction. The weak hands get out. The strong hands bide their time. They don't jump in right away. They wait and see, and then they get in. So we're now heading back up again. It's going to happen very quickly. And I say $10,000 an ounce. I expect that by mid to late 2027 at the latest. Very possibly sooner, but that would be an outside date. But people say, well, wait a second, Jim. It took forever to go from 2,000 to 3,000, and it took a long time to go from 4,000 to 5,000. Won't it take 15 years to get to $10,000 an ounce? And the answer is no, and here's why. People tend to anchor on a dollar amount. Let's say $1,000 an ounce, okay? And they basically treat each $1,000 increment as the same. And in terms of dollars, in terms of gain, it is the same. If I have an ounce of gold, it goes up $1,000 an ounce. I just made $1,000. Or if I have 50 ounces, I made $50,000. But here's the thing: when you go from 2,000 to 3,000, that's a 50% increase. When you go from 4,000 to 5,000, that's a 25% increase, significantly less in percentage terms. When you go from 9,000 to 10,000, that's only an 11% increase. It's the same $1,000, but because you're working off a higher base, the percentage gain is lower, which means it's easier to do. So what's going to happen is gold's going to make its way back to 5, then to 6, 7, but it's going to 8, 9, 10 fast, way faster than people expect. So this is the time to get in. It's off this interim bottom. It's heading much higher, $10,000 an ounce. But here's the real clue, Greg. This is going to happen much faster than people think at the end, because for the reason I mentioned, which is really fifth grade math, the $1,000 gain that you're looking for on your 50 ounces, okay, $50,000, because it's a smaller percentage, it's easier to do, and each one gets easier than the one before. So it happens really fast.
I gotta get hats off. I looked it up while you were talking. Gold was in the $1,300 range when you wrote this book, somewhere 13, 14. I mean, proof of that's it. I want to move on to this is when you have this kind of body of work. I've got plenty of questions. Okay, all right, plenty of questions. I wanted to go into, you've got a special thing that Trump put on his and it's about that things are going to get wickedly rough between now and November 3rd, the midterm elections. I had Dr. Jerome Corsi on. He said Trump's not going to allow the voter fraud. People don't realize how difficult this is going to be. The Democrats are screaming now that, he's going to rig the elections by stopping the voter fraud, the mail-in ballot. What's going to happen between now and November 3rd? Is things going to get rough?
Things are going to get rough. A lot is going to happen. It's already in the works. You can see it coming. But just to go to your main point, Greg, about the voter fraud, the Constitution says you can only be elected to presidency twice. Trump's been elected 3 times, but they stole one. He was elected in 2016, fair and square. He was elected again in 2020, but they stole the election. And then he was elected the 3rd time in 2024. So, as far as I'm concerned, already broken the mold. He won 3 elections, although they did steal one. How did they steal the election in 2020? A lot of ways. The main one were the drop boxes and mail-in ballots. There was no accountability. They literally printed ballots by the millions. There were ballots that came in, and people looked at them, poll watchers looked at them, and they said every ballot had all the same candidates checked, and the signature supposedly of the voter was identical. The odds of that happening are infinitesimal, like close to 0. Yeah, you might vote for Biden, you might vote for Trump, but down ballot, you'd have different choices. There would be some variation. There was no variation. These things might as well have been printed on a like a Xerox machine or a printer or something like that, and dropped off. They were coming in by the truckload. Here's the thing. There are 50 states and I don't know how many counties, probably 10 or 20,000 counties scattered throughout the United States. You don't have to win all of them. You don't have to cheat in all of them. You only have to cheat in about 5 cities to tip the election, because everyone knew, like, okay, there's no way Biden's going to win Mississippi. Biden doesn't win Mississippi, Alabama, ever. Okay, there's no way that Trump's going to win California or New York. They're solidly Democratic. So you go down the list of 50 states, and throw in the DC District of Columbia, whatever. Go down the list of 50 states. There are about 20 that are just going to be Democrat no matter what, and there are about 20 more that are going to be Republican no matter what. So there are only 10 states that are going to decide the election. And you don't even have to win all 10. You only have to win like 6 out of 10, or the ones with a little more, a few more electoral votes, and you win. You just need 271 electoral votes. You don't need, 435. So that means, so then we identify states. Which are the states? We know what they are. It's Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin. The thing is Nevada. There might be one more, but the point is, it's a really short list of states. Okay, so now I want to cheat. I don't have to cheat in 50. Yeah, Pennsylvania, absolutely. So I want to cheat. I don't have to cheat in 50 states. I only have to cheat in about 7 states, and I don't even have to win them all. I just have to win maybe 5 out of 7. And you go inside the state, and you'll find that all the voters are in one city or county. So in Georgia, it's Atlanta. In Pennsylvania, it's Philadelphia. In Wisconsin, it's Milwaukee, maybe Madison. In Arizona, it's Maricopa County, which is Phoenix, Scottsdale. In other words, the target set is really small. It's five. Michigan is Detroit. So the target set is really small. It's 5 or 6 cities in 5 or 6 states. And all you have to do is rig those cities. And they're all democratically controlled. Every location I just mentioned is democratically controlled. So again, this is much easier to do than people imagine. Well, why hasn't it happened in the past? Well, the answer is when I was a kid, we used to have election day. First of all, it was a day off. So it was a holiday. So nobody had an excuse, oh, gee, I need a mail-in ballot because I have to go to work. No, it was a national holiday. You got the day off so that you could vote. You went to a machine. A lot of them were mechanical. I know the ones in New Jersey where I grew up were you click the lever for the one you wanted. They counted them that day. They reported the results that night. There were no mail-in ballots, no drop boxes, no 7 days of indecision, all those things we have today. Now, on top of that, if you really want to put your conspiracy hat on, although it's not a conspiracy because the evidence is very clear, they ginned up the whole COVID thing. Okay, we've talked about it off the air. COVID was never as dangerous as it was portrayed to be. That was all a cover-up by Fauci. Fauci was covering up the fact that he paid for the research and lied about it, and the virus came from a laboratory, and he went through this pretense that it came from a wet market. I've actually been to Wuhan, believe it or not. The Wuhan Institute of Virology. So the Wuhan Institute of Virology is working on gain-of-function research on coronaviruses, and the virus that caused COVID was a engineered coronavirus, but we're supposed to think it came from a raccoon or a pangolin.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you argue with that? You can't. I mean, he's put the nail right on the head. Hit the nail right on the head. I'm going to pause it here because I want to move on to some other stuff. But this video will be in my daily news wrap up. I think they know what they're talking about here, folks. Let me click the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. It's the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Dr. Steve Turley has to say. You won't believe what just happened to Fauci. Speaking of Fauci, let's check this out.
Never saw coming.
Seeing no other motions, the question is on reporting of an original resolution regarding contempt of Congress. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
Yes.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Yes.
Senator Hawley.
Aye.
Senator Moreno.
On behalf of the millions of people harmed by Anthony Fauci, resoundingly yes.
Senator Ernst. Aye. Senator Moody. Aye. Senator Peters.
No.
Senator Hassan.
No.
Senator Blumenthal.
No.
Senator Fetterman.
No.
Senator Kim.
No.
Senator Gallego.
No by proxy.
Senator Slotkin.
No by proxy.
Senator Paul.
Yes.
Okay, did you notice that? All the Democrats voted no. I wonder why. I wonder why that happened. Even Fetterman, the one that everybody has been swooning over, voted no. I wonder why. Does anybody have any ideas? I'm totally baffled on this. Why only the Democrats and every intercoursing one of them voted no? Let me know your thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 8, the nays are 5. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 0, the nays are 2. On this vote, the yeas are 8, the nays are 5, and the motion is agreed.
That's the moment a GOP-led Senate committee voted 8-5 to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress. This is not some symbolic slap on the wrist. This is a formal criminal referral heading straight to Trump's Department of Justice. And if you could believe it, it gets even worse. Stick me to the very end of this video because we're going to see how this contempt vote is just the tip of the iceberg and how Fauci's worst nightmare from multiple angles is about to come true. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So, as I'm sure you all know, last week, Dr. Anthony Fauci sat down in front of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, chaired by Senator Rand Paul, and he absolutely humiliated himself in front of the entire nation, pleading the fifth 111 times. Every single question about his handling of the pandemic, every question about gain-of-function research, every question about the origins of this virus that killed over 1 million Americans, stonewalled with, "On the advice of my counsel, I plead the fifth." And already at that hearing, Senator Rand Paul reminded him that a presidential pardon waives the right to appeal to the fifth, since the pardon protects Fauci from self-incrimination. And therefore, his refusal to answer their questions is a blatant obstruction of a congressional investigation and a clear contempt of Congress. And that is exactly what was just fulfilled today. This morning, the committee voted 8-5 along party lines to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. Every single Republican voted yes. Every single Democrat voted no. And that tells you everything you need to know about who's still trying to protect this man. This vote was a formal legal finding, officially declaring that Anthony Fauci obstructed a lawful congressional investigation, and it sets in motion a referral straight to the Department of Justice for potential criminal prosecution. I don't think I need to remind you that Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro were sent to prison for the very same offense, contempt of Congress. And it'll be very interesting to see what Todd Blanche at the DOJ decides to do here. If he's proved anything over these last several months, he's certainly not shy in prosecuting. But now we're learning that this contempt charge may in fact be the least of Fauci's worries. Take a look at this. Talk about yet another hammer blow. Fauci's own phone might have just sealed his fate. The Wall Street Journal's reporting says Senator Ron Johnson, chairman of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, has announced he has obtained a full copy of Fauci's actual government cell phone straight from Bobby Kennedy's Health and Human Services Department. Johnson didn't hide his intent, posting on social media that he hoped the device would, quote, clarify many of the questions that Fauci refused to answer during that combative hearing, meaning the man who invoked the Fifth Amendment over 100 times may no longer get to control the narrative because his own texts will speak for him. This promises to be absolutely devastating for Fauci. We're now going to see every text, every contact that Fauci had during that horrific period of time, and no amount of Fifth Amendment stonewalling is going to cover that up. And that, of course, will be combined with his now infamous personal diary that was just published. These were personal daily notes from his time running the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases during the pandemic. And Senator Paul released roughly 1,000 pages of Fauci's personal handwritten pandemic-era journal entries covering December 2019 all the way through December 2022, where Fauci was found to have repeatedly contradicted his public statements. So, for example, a January 26 entry states explicitly that, quote, "We now know the market," the Chinese wet market, the open air marketplaces in China, "we now know the market was not the source of the virus," completely contradicting Fauci's public wet market narrative. And there are entries that also show him privately taking credit for pushing lockdowns and school closures that he later publicly denied recommending. And he also allegedly fed preferred questions to CNN, particularly Jake Tapper. Not to mention that he fanboyed over his own fame, that he celebrated himself as being the most famous person on the planet. So this combination of his personal phone records as well as his personal diary recorded during the COVID years, both of that promises to, at the very least, finally set the record straight of what this guy truly is all about. But as bad as finding his phone and diary is, that may not even be his worst nightmare. You see, presidential pardons, even auto pen ones, While they may protect you from federal prosecution, they don't protect you from state prosecution. Or how about states, plural, prosecutions? Well, my friends, that's exactly what we're about to see. This is going to absolutely blow you away. But first, did you hear this week about the 2 deaths in Michigan from the cyclospora parasite? Are you familiar with this? It's crazy. The CDC has more than 80 states and counting. Just hours after the damning Senate contempt vote, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier went straight to Fox News and dropped a bombshell of his own. He has just issued a formal state subpoena demanding Fauci turn over records on what he knew and when he knew it about vaccine safety and efficacy, while he was out there publicly telling Americans to trust the shots without hesitation. And the Florida Attorney General didn't stop at vaccines. He went straight to Fauci's wallet, accusing him of using his COVID-era fame to chase book deals, awards, and connections with high rollers that could net him millions upon millions of dollars outside his official government role entirely. But Florida isn't fighting alone. This is now a full-blown multi-state manhunt for accountability. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel joined the fight days earlier with 2 words that landed like a gut punch. Quote, Fauci lied. Muriel says Louisiana and Missouri already deposed Fauci once before, where he claimed, quote, he didn't recall key details 174 separate times, but newly uncovered diary pages and now his phone records directly contradict that sworn testimony. Alabama has joined as well, and West Virginia. They both signed on just this week, bringing the active investigating coalition to at least 4 states digging for potential fraud, obstruction, and perjury charges. And here's the part that should terrify Fauci more than anything coming out of D.C. Behind these 4 active states stands an even bigger army waiting in the wings, a coalition of a stunning 17 Republican attorneys general from Texas to Missouri to Kansas who spent over a year building the legal groundwork to bring Fauci to justice in courtrooms Biden's pardon can't touch. It's already being widely reported that more states are expected to announce action in the coming weeks, meaning that the walls aren't just closing in on Fauci, they're closing in from every single direction at once.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And think about this, folks. This never would have happened. This information that's coming out, election fraud, Fauci, the corruption and fraud in the welfare systems, never would have come out if it hadn't been for Donald Trump. Okay? Because all this kind of bullshit was going on before Donald Trump got elected back in 2016. It's definitely picked up some, trying to get him out of office, doing all this crazy shit thinking it's going to make Donald Trump look bad, particularly when he tries to stop it. You know, they're freaking out how Trump is a king, how he's a dictator, how he's a Nazi, how he's a Hitler, okay? But this never would have come out if it hadn't been for Donald Trump and the people that are following him. So there you have it. I voted for this. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. This is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and let's see what X22 report has to say. Mr. and Mrs. X, and as I've said before we get into this, I do want to share a comment from Steffing101. I should have shared this earlier, but I'm going to share it right now. Let me go ahead and click on this. I almost forgot, actually. Okay, whenever you miss the news events of the day, you can count on Murtech to get you caught up with the news on the wrap up. There we go. That's my wrap up, my daily news wrap up. That'll happen probably about 15 or 20 minutes after this video is over, and we'll go over that here in just a little bit. But with that being said, now let's see what X22 Report has to say, Mr. and Mrs. X. And I really like this. This is Rumble Premium, incidentally. And WBS, yeah, I saw your comment on Rumble Premium when I run that little ad read for Rumble. They give me, I think it was like 96 cents I made off of that, running that ad. But yeah, that, I don't know. You know, there's some crazy things that Rumble does, and I even tried to get in on that. I've got another channel that I've tried to get in on that, and I don't know. You know, I've told you before that we've had some glitches with Rumble. It seems like every time they try to update something, that it causes glitches somewhere else. So this, I don't know. Maybe you could try to get a hold of Rumble support and ask them about it. Okay, but with that being said, I like Mr. and Mrs. X. This is Rumble Premium, but since I do have Rumble Premium, we can go ahead and watch it together. And I like this because, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, my wife and I, or you and your significant other sitting down and discussing what the hell is going on. So let's go ahead and take a listen to it. Great stuff.
The big banner right on the front page, and I like to welcome Mrs. X.
Hey, everyone.
Now, today, what we're seeing out in the country, we're seeing a lot of the primaries happening, and we're starting to see the Democrats vote for basically almost like the illegals to run the country. And you have to remember their entire plan is to infiltrate this country from within. And this is why they brought in all the illegals. This is why, going all the way back to Obama, they created DACA. And that was to create a force to go up against we the people. I know it's hard to believe. I know people saying, well, what do you mean by that? How are they going to create a force? Well, think about what's happening out in Illinois.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Where they're allowing non-citizens to become police officers.
Yep.
Now, not illegals, but non-citizens. Think about that for a second. Now, again, when you look at these blue states and you look at these blue cities, you have to question, you know, what do they consider illegal? What do they consider a non-citizen? Because again, they always tell you they're going to do something, but then they do the opposite.
Well, and that they split hairs and they do loopholes. And that's why this illegal or non-citizen, it starts to get confusing, and it's purposeful, in my opinion. But there's a reason for it.
Well, here's the loophole. I mean, when you look at Illinois is actually following what Obama did back in 2012 with DACA.
Well, isn't that where he's from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, is he?
Technically,
he's
whatever.
really from Kenya.
On paper,
But,
I know exactly.
yeah.
On American paper, that's where he's from.
Right. So you have to understand that they did this on purpose because they wanted to create a force that can go up against the government. Actually, Obama actually said that. He actually said we need a civilian force to go up against the government. Now, a lot of people back at the time thought, oh, that's right. No, just in case the government became tyrannical, we can have a civilian force. But what he was really talking about was the infiltration into this country. And they created DACA back then, which stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So Illinois is actually following what they created back in 2012, and that is DACA. So what does that allow people to do that are non-citizens of this country? Well, they can get jobs. They can get a job maybe as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
For their job, they could actually carry a weapon because their job requires it. Now, can they own a weapon privately? No. Can they have a weapon at their job if that's their job? Yes. So when you look at Illinois, this is Public Act 1030357, and this was House Bill 3751 signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker. And this amended the Illinois Municipal Code and Counties Codes. It allows non-citizens who are legally authorized to work in the United States under federal law or DACA recipient to apply for a police officer or a deputy sheriff position. They remain subject to all other requirements and limitations that apply to citizens, applicants, background checks, age, education, everything, except U.S. citizenship. So think about that for a second. So basically, Illinois followed what Obama did in 2012, because remember, Pritzker signed this in 2023. The DACA law came into existence back in 2012. So when you look at this, you could see this is what they were doing. Now, all the agencies within government, they were also using DACA, where you can bring in a non-citizen. They could work for the ATF. They could work for any of the agencies. And if their job required a weapon, they could use it.
But think about the magnitude of what that really means. Like you're basically opening up like a secret door to let in people that are maybe not about the American way of life, have not gone through the whole citizenship thing, and are being enabled to carry a firearm because they're saying it's their job. Well, and again, what are we doing? No, go ahead.
So this is what I want people to think of. Now, think about what you've been witnessing in the country, where you have a mass shooting. And by the way, during Obama's term, there was the most mass shootings we've ever seen.
Shocker.
And think about all the gun control laws that they were putting into place.
Yeah.
So just think about that for a second. So they wanted the U.S. citizen unarmed.
Yes.
Right? They were trying assault weapons, bad. You know where this was going.
Yeah.
You know they were going to go all the way to pistols. Every single gun, just like Australia, New Zealand, UK, France, you name it. The same thing was going to happen. Same thing with Canada. Actually, Canada is a perfect example for present day, because you saw Trudeau saying we're only going after assault weapons. Then they went after pistols.
Of course.
And pretty much everything was banned.
Well, the minute you start giving them an inch, they take a mile.
So they were trying to get the weapons away from the people. But think to yourself, as they continually brought in non-citizens to be police officers who are allowed to use weapons on the job. But of course, they couldn't have it privately, but they have it on the job. And the U.S. citizen was unarmed.
Yeah.
See how this is all playing out now?
Mm-hmm.
You see what they were trying to do? And this was their plan.
Yeah.
And some of the states are still following through on all of this.
Oh, 100%.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it all goes back to Obama, because if you go back and listen to his works, he was always telling you what he was going to do. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was fooled by the Kool-Aid at first too when Obama came on the scene. But now when you listen to him, I'm like, oh, my eyes are opened and I can't unhear it, because he had a plan and it was not for the benefit of the American people of this country. He actually hates America and he had a plan to take it over. And he was doing it while smiling at your face and telling you, like, and his little flowery words are telling you, we're all in this together, while he pulled out every ism under the book, really divided this country, and was building his own little police force, so to speak, of his people that he was bringing in. That's what he was doing.
And that's what he said. If you go back in time and you listen to his video, he said, we need a civilian force. See, a lot of people, he's very good. He's a snake oil salesman.
Yes.
He's very good at trying to convince you that he was talking about we the people. He wasn't. He was talking about his people.
Yes.
And this is how these people do it. They're very, very good at this, in tricking you. And then they put the laws into place behind the scenes so you don't really know what's going on. And basically, as they kept infiltrating the country, as you can see it today, it's if you go back to his time all the way up to now, you could see what they're doing. Of course, with Biden, Obama was actually running the country. He was able to actually put his plan into overdrive, which actually I think President Trump wanted him to do, so that people would see this, and actually had Biden be the front man. So this way he was in the background and he wasn't responsible for what was going on, because you have to remember, he's a snake oil salesman. He's not going to come out and tell you, hey, this is what I'm doing. He does everything from behind the curtain.
But he also told you that he wanted to do that was his dream, because Obama, this is where the ego comes in. He always, and I think it's part of it also, he likes to tell you what he's doing, almost to be like an F you to your face, because it's like, I'm tricking you, you're going along with it, and I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing, and you people are so stupid that you don't even see what I'm doing. Because I think he gets off on that. That's my personal take. Obviously it's my opinion, but that's how I feel about him when he says these things, because he's very clear when he tells you, But like you said, he's such a good snake oil salesman. You don't realize that's what he's telling you at first. You have to listen very carefully to his words because he really makes no secret about what he wants ultimately.
And for those people saying, "Now this couldn't be true," I mean, we just showed you the Illinois law. So let's go to the U.S. law, 18 U.S.C. 925A1. For firearms and ammunition issued for the use of the United States, a state or local government agency, ATF has taken the position that this exception allows DACA recipients who are employed as law enforcement officers to possess department-issued duty weapons while performing official duties. Now, they can't own it as a private citizen, but if they're in law enforcement, they're not citizens of this country, they can actually have a weapon because this law allows them to have a weapon. So who do you think they're bringing into this country? Who do you think they want to have the weapons to control? The citizens of this country. So basically, a non-citizen of this country is going to control the citizens of this country.
Yep.
Think about that for a second. It's craziness.
Wild. It is
It's like someone from the United States going into Germany or to France saying, "I'm a police officer now. I'm going to now tell you what to do in your country.
I'm the captain now."
Yes, this is how they infiltrated the country.
Yeah.
This is what they were trying to do. And this is what Trump is now stopping. And for those people that are saying that, oh, Trump is not deporting people fast enough. Well, you have to remember the deep state players, all the Democratic attorney generals, before Trump even won the election, this was in 2024. Do you know they signed a secret agreement that if Trump should win, that they would sue Trump over and over and over to delay him in anything that he's was going to do? They said anything that he's for, they're against.
Of course.
This was a secret pact between Democrat attorney generals in the United States. They signed this. And when you look at all the attorney generals, they have hundreds of lawsuits against President Trump since he won the election.
All right, I'm going to pause it there, and I completely believe that. Okay, it's the first time I've heard that. I wanted you to hear it, but I 100% believe that based on exactly what's happening. Okay? Military-industrial complex, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1961. He warned us about it, and it's just getting bigger. It has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the last 6.5 decades, or probably 7 decades, because he realized about the military-industrial complex when he was president in the 50s, okay? He took office in 1953, won the election in 52, took office in 53, so it's probably been going on for 7 decades. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. This will be in my daily news wrap-up. Let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come
said
from
anything
Mr.
that he's
Mrs. X, and see right down here, premium only. But because I have Rumble Premium, I'm allowed, I can share this with you. And again, it'll be in my daily news wrap-up. So if you jump into that, you'll be able to see it there as well, even if you don't have Rumble Premium. But with that being said, this video I shared with you, I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same for me. Let's jump back here, and I've copied the chats right here into, actually I had to make two different copies of it because I'm only allowed 2,000 characters. A lot of good chatting going on today, folks. Thank you very, very much. Particularly Pios and Pawn, is that how you pronounce that? Thank you very much for jumping in there. You're the 54th unique chatter this month. Doo-doo. Okay, I need 75. So that's great. I appreciate that. But let me remind you that these videos that I share with you are videos that come directly from the producer's channel, okay? I've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel if you want to go check out more information from them. And these videos that I've shared with you here are videos that I've posted on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Here's the video from USA Watchdog. Here's the video from X22 Report. Up here's the video from Andrew Klavan that I shared with you, and Dr. Steve Turley. Okay, I've got a ton. This is your one-stop shop for information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. It's a free site. The link is in the description box below. I don't ask for your name. I don't ask for your email address. I don't ask you to sign up for a newsletter. I don't have a bunch of ads popping up in your face. I don't drop cookies on your computer and sell your information. You're pretty much anonymous when you come here, folks. So feel free to do so. Okay? There we go. I thought I'd share this page, but at any rate, here's the page with Andrew Klavan and Dr. Steve Turley and USA Watchdog and X22 report. Okay, I'd like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to do so. But that's why I have my daily news wrap-up playlist. It says I have 22 videos in here. We're going to take off with Greg Hunter, USA Watchdog, X22 report, Andrew Klavan, We the People News, On the Fringe, Robert Govea, talk about election cover-up, bombshell, Biden burned theft of 600,000 plus voter records. Ta-da! There's no proof. Prove it. Prove it. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? The Rubin Report, the McWaters Effect, Matt Moore's TV. A ton of great information here, folks. But go ahead and take a break right now. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, maybe some wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes so I can get this set up in Rumble Studio. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.